In a progressive world, success isn't measured by what people have in their granaries, but by how far we've come. Hello, quick recaps here. Today I will explain a 2014 French science fiction film called Lucy. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. At the beginning of the film, a voiceover of our protagonist, Lucy, takes us on a journey telling us how far we've come from the age of evolution to now, technology and modernity. She says as a human breed we have achieved knowledge that is very useful in our lives and future, but she also ponders on the effectiveness of this, and if we are headed towards progression or regression. So, who is Lucy, and what is her story? Lucy is an American currently studying in Taipei, Taiwan. She is outside a hotel with her new boyfriend Richard. Richard is a drug mule and currently needs to deliver a briefcase to his employer. The two are bickering, with Richard begging Lucy to take the briefcase inside. However, Lucy is reluctant, saying she has exams and she wants to go in and study for them. Richard offers her $500, but Lucy wants to know what is in the case, but Richard cannot reveal this. Like many stubborn heads, Richard doesn't take no for an answer, so he goes extra. He sneakily removes handcuffs from his pocket and locks Lucy's hand with the case. Lucy has no option but to follow through with the plan. A nervous Lucy gets into the hotel and speaks to the receptionist. She tells the clerk she's there for Mr. Jang. As the clerk rings the man up, Lucy looks at Richard, who is standing by the window encouraging her. Soon, Jang's men reach the lobby, and as Richard is waving at Lucy, he gets shot. Jang gives the clerk a fat wad of money so he can keep silent about what he just witnessed before proceeding to drag Lucy into the elevator. In Jang's room, Lucy frantically explains herself to no avail as the men are Chinese and do not understand a single word. Fortunately, Jang hires a translator and the group learns Lucy has been tasked with a drug exchange by Richard. Jang gives Lucy the code to open the case before exiting the room. His men put on protective shields and have their guns on standby, ready to shoot the poor woman if anything goes wrong. You can never be too careful. Lucy is a nervous wreck, but she manages to open the case. When faced with certain death, either way you choose, you have to make a leap of faith. The suitcase reveals 4 packets containing blue crystals. The crystals are called CPH4 and are highly valuable synthetic drugs. Jang wants to confirm whether he has the real deal, so he has a drugged up man brought into the room. The man snorts the drugs and after a few seconds he starts convulsing. The convulsions stop and the man laughs maniacally. Jang, having no further use of the man, kills him. Jang gives Lucy an offer to work for him, but she declines. Since this isn't Red Cross, the poor girl gets a counteroffer and is knocked out. Elsewhere, research scientist Professor Samuel Norman is giving a presentation on the human brain and its capacity. Norman reveals that all animals use a tiny bit of their brains. Humans use 15%, and dolphins, due to their ability to echolocate, use 20%. If the human mind is exposed and people use their brains, amazing things would happen. Past 20%, you take charge of your body, cells, structure, and composition. At 30%, you can control others. As percentages increase, you can control matter, too. Norman reveals that if the brain capacity is at 100%, even he doesn't know what would happen. Lucy wakes up in a decent room naked. Jang's goons enter the room and throw some clothes before she is escorted out of the room. She enters the room and is introduced to an English guy and other confused victims. The English guy explains that the group has CPH4 bags sewn in their bellies and their role is to smuggle the drugs into all parts of the world. The man arranges flight plans for them. Lucy is chained to a pipe in a cold, damp room. One of the men decides to test the goods, but Lucy decides she will not let the man violate her more than they have. At this point, Lucy is revealed to be a weak and vulnerable woman whose emotions and feelings might cost her life. The man doesn't take the rejection politely, so he starts beating Lucy up. Lucy crunches into a fatal position, causing the man to hit her belly repeatedly. As Lucy lies writhing in pain, we see that the bag inside her bursts open, and the blue crystals are quickly assimilated into her bloodstream. Lucy's eyes turn blue and she starts convulsing rapidly. Gravity doesn't work on her side and she's flung across the room like a piece of paper before passing out. The Lucy that wakes up is a cool, calm, and collected person. One of the goons comes into the room and Lucy lures him before going sweet commando on him and escaping the cell. She disarms him and uses her newfound fighting skills to make quick work of the men in the other room. Starving, she devours the food she finds on the table. Outside, she shoots one taxi driver because he can't speak English. Come on, Lucy, chill out. The language barrier is a real issue. This goes to show that she's become quite ruthless. The other taxi driver speaks English, so Lucy has him take her to the hospital. She enters the operating room where doctors are trying to save a man's life. Lucy looks at the man's scans before shooting him, saying his tumor had already spread. That is one way to cut the line. Lucy has the frightened doctors remove the leaking bags from inside her. As they're operating on her, mind you, she's not on pain medication, she borrows the doctor's phone and calls her mother. As the tiny bits of her emotions fade, she tells her mother that she remembers 1,000 kisses she would give her, and her memories even show her petting a dog when she was barely a year old. The doctors tell her that natural CPH4 is produced in tiny quantities by pregnant women during their 6th week of pregnancy. It helps the fetus get the energy to develop, and the doctors are surprised that she's still alive. Lucy exits the hospital and goes back to the cab. She instructs the driver to take her to the hotel where all of this started. She quickly eliminates Zhang's men before stabbing Zhang in his hands, and using her telepathy, she learns where the other bags are being transported to. Lucy exits the room, not fazed by the bloody massacre. Later, she visits her roommate Carolyn and asks to use her computer. Lucy starts researching at light speed about the brain and stumbles upon the research by Norman. Her intellectual skills are crazy, because as she's typing away, she's also maintaining conversation with Carolyn, and she comprehends everything. Lucy calls Norman asking for his guidance. Norman doesn't believe her, so she manipulates all his screens appearing on them, proving her case. Norman tells her that with her knowledge, the best thing to do is to transfer it to the next generation. Lucy says she will meet him in Paris in 12 hours. Before leaving, Lucy tells Carolyn to change her lifestyle as her liver and kidneys are failing, and also prints out a drug prescription for her. Heading to the airport, Lucy realizes her face is all over the news, so she changes her hair color and style, appearing like someone you'd see on the cover of Vogue, instead of a drunken junkie. Lucy calls Paris local police captain Pierre Del Rio and tells him of the 3 drug mules and the drugs in them. She gives him pictures and destinations, asking that he gets the men and retrieves the drug packets. Lucy gets on the plane and she starts hacking 2 computers, gathering knowledge at a speed faster than light. The flight attendant asks her to switch off the 2 laptops and offers her a drink. Lucy takes the champagne and toasts to knowledge. However, the drink does more harm than good, as it destabilizes her and she starts to disintegrate. Lucy sees her teeth falling out and her skin starts to go all Peter Parker. Knowing how weird this would look to the other people on the plane, she rushes to the bathroom, frustrating the attendants as the plane is about to land. In the bathroom, Lucy's fingers disappear and her skin turns into a very bad Botox case. Desperate, she snorts on some CPH4, but she fully explodes. What an ending. Or is it? Lucy manages to fix herself off-screen and she wakes up in a room resembling a hospital. She quickly dresses up, but Pierre and his men learn of her wakefulness and go to confront her. Lucy simply puts the men to sleep, leaving only Pierre standing. Pierre, coordinating with the airport police, has managed to find the drug mules. Lucy instructs Pierre that she needs his help, but the manipulated man does not think he can do anything more. Lucy kisses him and Pierre follows her without a doubt. Lucy, using drawstrings of matter, learns that the Chinese are on their way to the police station. It's a race of time and Lucy is not ready to be defeated. She gets in Pierre's car, reveals she has never driven before, and then starts driving through the streets in a way that would put even the Fast and Furious crew to shame. She manipulates matter and traffic, paving way for her and leaving behind either dead, injured, or cursing drivers and damaged vehicles. The police who chase her have no luck. The Chinese reach the station and start retrieving their drugs. They'll get value for their money, dead or alive. One man tries to flee but lands before Lucy. The Chinese try to attack her, but she traps them in an invisible force field, disarms them, and then sticks them to the roof. Lucy retrieves the briefcase with the drugs. Before exiting the room, she retrieves the remaining bag from the fleeing man before leaving. Now it's time to meet with Norman. Norman has left his hotel and assembled a group of elites, including neurophysicists, quantum analyzers, and all those scientists with fancy names. Lucy discusses the nature of life and time and how people's nature is distorted by their perceptions. Basically, what you want to see is what you see. She then says she would input all of her knowledge into a single computer. She will need no distractions, so she asks Pierre to take care of the Chinese who are armoring up to attack the university. Too late, assassins! For Lucy's knowledge transfer to happen, her brain must reach full capacity. So Norman and the scientists liquidate the crystals and intravenously inject her with all the contents of the CP4H. Her fingers morph into a black substance that begins to spread over the computers, and all the electronic objects in the lab, transforming them into one next-generation supercomputer. Zhang's men decide to put an end to the fight outside, and use an LPG to bomb Norman's lab. However, the explosion pushes Lucy to modern time, New York. Mentally, she begins a space-time journey: modern New York, pre-civilization, Indian time, dinosaurs, and eventually she sees the first woman. Lucy and the two share a quiet time before locking fingertips. This causes her brain's capacity to maximize, and she travels all the way to the beginning of time, witnessing the Big Bang. Meanwhile, Jang enters the room and has his gun pointed at Lucy, whose transformation is nearly over. As he fires, Lucy disappears. The enraged man shoots at space, nearly hitting the scientists, but Pierre enters the room and ends the drug dealer. The black mass on the computers forms a trajectory that releases a black flash drive, and it disintegrates. Pierre is affected by this and wonders where his superwoman has gone to. Suddenly, his phone beeps, and he sees a message from Lucy saying, "I am everywhere." In the end, Lucy's voice is heard saying that 1 billion years ago, life was given to us. Now we know what to do with it. But wait a minute. Have you checked out Heat? A police officer dedicates his life to looking for a notorious thief who has baffled the LAPD several times. In the end, 2 men are left standing in a face-off. Who wins? Check out the link below and see how a single lie can cause a myriad of events that eventually destroy a man and those he loves. Also, subscribe to this channel for more recaps of your favorite movies. See you next time, and take care.